Coming up on Tech News Weekly, it's me, Jason Howell, my co-host Mikah Sargent, and a whole lot of news to talk about. We've got Sam Machkovech from Ars Technica, who talks a little bit about HTC's Vive Flow announcement from earlier this morning. They kind of look like bug eyes, VR goggles that don't offer as much as the competition. We talk about that. Also, Steve Stecklow from Reuters wrote a really great piece about how Amazon promotes its own brands, including rigging its search results. We dive into that. I walk through next week's big technology event schedule. It's 3 days in a row of new technology hardware that you're going to want to know all about. We talk about the coverage there, and Mikah talks about the ways that Apple's AirPods are being designed with health applications, so things like hearing aids and postural awareness. All that and more coming up next on Tech News Weekly.
Podcasts you love
from people you trust.
This is TWiT.
This is Tech News Weekly, episode 205, recorded Thursday, October 14th, 2021. This episode of Tech News Weekly is brought to you by Command Line Heroes, an original podcast from Red Hat that tells the epic true tales of developers, programmers, hackers, geeks, and open source rebels who are revolutionizing the technology landscape. Season 8 is out now. Search for Command Line Heroes on Apple Podcasts or anywhere you listen to podcasts.
And by IT Pro TV. The IT world needs cybersecurity more than ever, along with qualified people to fill its roles. Get your cybersecurity certs with IT Pro TV. Visit itpro.tv/TNW for an additional 30% off all consumer subscriptions for the lifetime of your active subscription when you use code TNW30 at checkout.
And by Crowdstrike. Crowdstrike harnesses the power of every click, every action, and every ally to grow stronger and stop cyber threats before they can stop you. Join the fight and experience the power of Falcon Platform for free today at crowdstrike.com/twit.
Hello and welcome to Tech News Weekly, the show where every week we talk to and about the people making and breaking the tech news. I am one of your hosts, Mikah Sargent.
And I'm the other one, Jason Howell. Good to see you, Mikah.
Good to see you as well, Jason. I am looking forward to today's show.
Yeah, let's get into it. This was so this bit of hardware news has been leaking throughout the week. And earlier when I saw this, I was like, oh, I'm super compelled. And then there was an event this morning by HTC. And I'm super curious to hear, Sam Machkovech, your insight into this from Ars Technica, because I don't know what I was expecting, but as far as like VR headsets are concerned, I don't know that I was necessarily wooed by what HTC had to offer. Welcome to the show, Sam.
Hi, Mikah. Hi, Jason. Yes, as you can see right here, I have the brand new HTC Vive Flow on my face in the form of $9 sunglasses. I'm kidding. Although I do like green on my face. Yeah, so y'all saw probably the same thing we did. For anyone tuning in who's not familiar, HTC has been behind on all things virtual reality for the 5+ years that it's been doing it as a commercial enterprise, meaning selling relatively affordable VR to people that can install it in their homes. And they've been kind of blown away. Obviously, Facebook and Oculus have been in the leadership on that front. If you've heard about people buying VR kits over the past few years, it's probably Oculus. It's probably Oculus Quest. And HTC has mostly been making stuff that connects to computers, and not just computers, but very nice ones, because they need all of the graphic bells and whistles to run 90 frames a second of video in your eyeballs so that you don't get sick in a virtual world. So this week, we all saw Twitter leaks of what looked like something out of a Venture Brothers episode or any other number of sci-fi films, these bug-eyed virtual reality sunglasses that seem to be called HTC Vive Flow. Turned out that is exactly this leak was a few days ago, where it just showed image after image, very clear, lots of technical hints to what it would be. And then it landed, but I think you and I all kind of wondered what shape it would be. Do you want me to kind of tear into exactly what was revealed?
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about the headset itself. Obviously, a very unique style to it. I mean, with the Quest, we're kind of used to like the broad kind of plate on the front. You aren't really kind of seeing any sort of shape around eyes or any sort of resemblance to sunglasses or bug eyes or anything. This thing just looks different. I guess the thing that it reminds me of more is the Magic Leap headset. It kind of has a little bit of that kind of like bug eye approach. But why? So what's so unique about this design? Do we have any indication as far as why this looks this particular way versus what we've seen before?
Well, when I was talking about Oculus at the top, that was in part because they've been very much about that, what you were saying, a plate all around your eyes, something that looks very much like a bulky headset. And this is arguably the biggest push of something that's more like sunglasses, which might make you think, oh, these could be augmented reality, or these could be more comfortable, or something of the sort. Even the Magic Leap set, even though it's kind of sunglasses looking, also has a sort of steampunk helmet kind of thing going on. So those are the questions we had. And the answers aren't great on a technical level because it's not augmented reality, meaning you don't see the real world in front of you with these. This does not put 3D images on your table that you would then manipulate with your hand or your controller. It's meant to block out the world and put virtual images in your face. So there's that distinction. Also, it has what's known as 6 degrees of freedom tracking, meaning you should be able to move your head around in virtual space, get up from a chair, and have all the rest of the virtual stuff move around in kind, which is similar to Oculus Quest. But it only has 2 forward-facing cameras, and one is hidden behind each of those massive lenses. So we don't necessarily know how good it is at tracking a fuller spaced room. And worst of all, HTC still isn't willing to tell us what the heck the specs are inside of this, how much power there is. We know that there's some sort of processing inside the headset as opposed to an external, what's kind of a processing puck or processing brick, which Magic Leap has. So whatever smartphone style guts are inside of this thing, they're inside of this svelte kind of headset, which does appear to look more like sunglasses, at least how you put it on your face, as opposed to a virtual reality set that has a whole full-on strap and maybe a dial to clock it in and stuff like that, as we've seen from PlayStation and Oculus and Valve. So it's all very weird because it doesn't seem very powerful and it doesn't have hand-tracked controls. The idea is you need an Android smartphone, which then the headset will sync to, and it'll work as a pointer of some sort. And we don't know exactly how that works, but that's different than a lot of popular VR apps, especially on Quest, where it expects full hand tracking, maybe 2 hands, maybe some buttons. This conversely says you need an Android phone, and then it'll kind of point at stuff, and it'll work with meditation and video conferencing and media streaming. And there was a simple game that was previewed. It's got a terrible Slurpee Snakes. Space Slurpees is the name of it, which I'd never heard of until I said this. It's out on other platforms, and it's a very simple looking like snake on your old Nokia smartphone, but in 3D. So I'm kind of rambling there. And that's the reason I'm rambling is because HTC hasn't done a great job of coming forward and saying, this is exactly how it works and who it's for. We're left a lot more question marks than exclamation points.
And that's one of my primary questions after watching part of the event this morning and then reading through both the rumors, and then now, there's some even hands-on. I think Upload VR had some time with the device. It's really hard for me to be able to look at this and know exactly who it's for, because it's like this weird kind of mixture of things we've seen before. It's almost like it's an Oculus Go in the way that you have that single controller. It's like one step further than smartphone VR, but not far enough for it to be true VR. It doesn't have the head straps, like you said. So the idea of actually playing like full-on motion VR experiences probably not going to happen, because you get too active and the thing's going to fly off your face. It's $500, which means it's a couple $100 more than probably I think the popular leader in the consumer VR space, the Quest 2. who it's for is really seems to me to be the huge question here. If you had to guess, given what you know, what do you think?
I mean, here my answer there is someone at HTC said we are seeing Chinese OEMs getting the form factor down to something that's more sunglasses size, which I think a lot of people might by default go, well, I would try that out. Maybe not a full bulky Oculus style thing, but something that looks more like sunglasses. Sure, I'll try that out. So I think HTC said, let's do that. Let's get that sunglasses style thing. Okay, what's the price point we can get away with? 500? Because again, Oculus and Facebook are losing money per unit sold, or at least they had been. If they've gotten it profitable yet, we haven't heard about it. So it's not surprising that $500 would be the price you do if you're not looking to burn through cash in order to, I don't know, create Facebook accounts or any of that madness. So $500 sunglasses style and yada, yada, yada. I feel like there's a lot of yada, yada, yada in terms of how they get to that price point and that size. And ultimately, then that leaves us with the question mark of who would strap into this? And I think it's truly people who wouldn't look any further than those two simple bullet points, because it doesn't seem like this is going to be instantly usable. Like right now, you go to HTC's site and you check for compatible Android smartphones. I have a Galaxy S9. It doesn't work. The Galaxy S10 from Samsung is relatively new, also doesn't work. You need no less than the Galaxy S20, just from the Samsung line of things. And I didn't do a comprehensive look of every Android handset, but it's something to do with either the 5G chip that it wants in order to connect wirelessly or something like that. So that's a pretty big hurdle, because you'd think, oh, you own a smartphone, you're good to go. Not so much. So I guess I just think that once you begin looking anywhere past $500 looks like sunglasses, you run into more roadblocks than you do accessibility, because I'm just not sure that higher price and lower power is going to lead people to go, I want to use this for meditation, very simple games, and very simple video conferencing, unless some, IT department is charmed and buys 100 of these for their staff and thinks that this will be the ultimate VR video conferencing tool that is free of Facebook's bounds. And let's be clear, we're all, I think maybe our excitement when we even talked before the segment went live was in part because we're all hungry to see something that's accessible to an average non-super nerd, that's VR, that is outside the Facebook ecosystem, because Oculus has clamped that down. You have to have a Facebook account. We even learned very recently what happens when Facebook's servers go kablooey. That affected people in VR. Some people are still lost in VR. They were strapped in and they're not allowed to leave without the Facebook connection. That's a joke. But ultimately, there's just nobody else pushing in that direction. And so I think some of our salivating was more optimistic and hopeful. And I'm not sure that this will actually bear out in that way, that, we can hope for something that's competitive on price and performance compared to the Oculus Facebook combo, but I don't think this is going to be it.
Yeah, really. I mean, it does not look that way. And then when I saw the $500 price point, before I knew how incredibly limited this headset actually is, I was like, okay, well, maybe $200 extra is the non-Facebook tax, because I'm pretty certain that Facebook is selling its hardware as low as possible, because where it's really making its money is the services that it requires you to be tied into in order to use the device. So they're probably selling, I'm guessing, but they're probably selling it at somewhat of a loss just to get that tie-in, that lock-in. Maybe $200 is the tax there, but then you aren't out of any sort of feature parity. The idea of locking this into a Android device as the controller, Mikah, that you are a VR fan, you have the Quest 2, that locks you out, because I'm guessing you don't have an Android device to control one of these with. That would turn you away, right?
I'd have to pull one out and hope that it's modern enough to be able to work with it. And so, I think that this does potentially limit folks who don't exist in the Android space to be able to try one of these out. Yeah, indeed. Well, it's super confusing. We don't have a whole lot more time, but I did want to throw in here Facebook's Mark Zuckerberg and CTO Andrew Bosworth posted images of themselves with Oculus prototypes. Do you think this is timed intentionally, or was this just, what do you think as far as what they tweeted?
Well, let me see how quickly I can get in and out of this. They have so many random prototypes and skunkwork things happening at all of their different Facebook Reality Labs offices, including one near Seattle, that I'm not shocked that they can just at any time pull those out. But Facebook has, I don't know if you've heard, a reputation problem, and they would be actually pretty well positioned to use the virtual reality side as a way to, I don't know, get people to stop talking about all of the other things and problems and regulatory potential measures and so on. And they're not necessarily great at that. Reacting to HTC seems silly on their part, since barely anybody's paying attention to HTC as a big VR player. And additionally, they just released a big exclusive game for Oculus, Lone Echo 2. It just landed out of nowhere this week after years in development. No PR push, no video sizzle reel, just like with a thud. The whole side of Facebook, they're clearly working on things, and on the Quest or lower powered side of things, it's happening. They've got an Oculus Connect coming later this month. That'll be Facebook Connect. That's their virtual reality specific conference. We're certainly going to see some sort of headset news there, whether it's a new product or a tease or something. That's all coming. I think that if I was on the Facebook PR side of things, I'd be doing a lot more to try and talk up the wizardry and wonder of what's coming, because they don't have anybody necessarily who's banging down their door competitively. So if they leak a secret, it's not like, oh my God, HTC is going to show up and steal their thunder. So I think now would be a good time for them to trickle the hopeful, weird plans they might have for the metaverse to get that conversation going. They're not doing a great job of it, but we're almost certainly going to see something more advanced, because they're making money with Quest 2, or at least they're acquiring users. That's for sure.
Yeah, they
People
are
buying
indeed.
Quest 2. And so they're not going to slow down that momentum, at least with that platform. But Oculus has its own soupy world of people who like to use VR with computers. And Facebook seems done with that, which is fair and it's fine. But that's sort of the messaging happening this week with that mention of the game Lone Echo 2, which is computer only, does not work with Quest standalone. And that's a whole mess, which I'll be talking about at Ars Technica pretty soon. I can go into all sorts of detail on VR, but right now, HTC and Facebook, that's a hilarious, that's not even a question of who's winning that conversation on the VR side.
No, indeed. Facebook has it really locked up right now. And like you said earlier, those of us who are really interested in VR, we are pining for an alternative. We're just kind of waiting for it to happen. Who knows if it's going to be HTC at some point or some other company. But Sam Machkovech, always a pleasure getting you on the show and talking VR with you. I love these conversations. People can find your work at arstechnica.com. If they want to find you online, where can they find you?
At Sam Red on the Twitter, and then just go through your favorite search engine and look for Steam, Valve, VR. I've got a recent report about leaks about things they're making, which are a little bit more computer centric, but seem to be aimed at Oculus and Quest and Facebook. So for more on that stuff, that's pretty recent. Look into that, dive in. Always a pleasure to talk with you all. Have a good one.
All right. Take care, Sam. We'll talk to you soon. Bye. All right. Coming up, should companies be able to promote their own brands over others? And we're talking about Amazon here, but Google's guilty of this. So many other companies are as well. We're going to talk about that in our next interview. But first, this episode of Tech News Weekly is brought to you by Command Line Heroes. This is an original podcast from Red Hat. Talked about it on the show many times. Love Command Line Heroes. It tells the epic, true tales of developers, of programmers, hackers, geeks, open source rebels. Maybe you're one of those. That's your connection to this podcast. And those folks who are revolutionizing the technology landscape. It offers a unique blend of historical context, and it also offers current trends that are shaping the tech landscape. And this season, they tackle one question from every angle. What is a robot? A robot could be a number of different things. It could be defined many ways. Is it a servant, a prosthetic, a vehicle, a factory worker? Also, looking at why we actually build robots that don't look like robots, that actually look humanoid, that look like us. And we often ask whether we can trust robots. That's a conversation that comes up very often. But what about robots trusting us? Super interesting stuff. Science fiction tells us many stories about robots, of course. In the future, they're going to serve our every need, or maybe they're going to develop a mind of their own and turn against us. Maybe they are going to save humanity or be humanity's downfall. Season 8 of Command Line Heroes covers the robots that are in our midst and the determined dreamers who are actually bringing them to life. 8 episodes compare the promise of science fiction to the reality of robots today. And yeah, I mean, you should really check out these episodes. It's amazing stuff. The first episode in particular had a chance to listen to Robot as a Servant, and it was just so interesting. Here's actually a clip.
While making this season, we discovered a robot reality that's pretty removed from the robots we imagined. And yet, all those misguided ideas about what a robot should be actually shaped what robots are. And no robot fiction shaped things more than the story we told ourselves about robotic servants.
Yeah, pretty awesome. When I think of robotic servants, I think of the Jetsons, of course. But I don't know where your mind goes to. The award-winning podcast is hosted by Sargent Barak. It's produced by Red Hat, and it is awesome. Check it out for yourself. Season 8 is out now. Search for Command Line Heroes on Apple Podcasts or anywhere you listen to podcasts. We'll also include a link in the show notes. My big thanks to Command Line Heroes for their support of Tech News Weekly. All right, Mikah, on to you.
I am pleased to be joined today, if briefly, by one of the journalists who was responsible for the new Reuters piece about Amazon and the huge amount of internal data that has kind of come out regarding its strategy in India. With its own private brands and kind of its behaviors in that way. Steve Stecklow joins us today on the show. Thank you for joining us, Steve.
Great to be with you.
Yes. So let's go ahead and get right into things. I know you've got a heart out here. Can you give kind of our listeners a brief overview of what this Reuters Investigates piece is about? Because I think some people will be familiar with some of Amazon's brands, but maybe not the sort of dark and stormy background that some of this features.
Well, as a lot of consumers who've used Amazon know, they have their own private brands, like a lot of retailers do. It's things like Amazon Basics, for example. But they've consistently said over the years that they don't disadvantage other sellers by doing things to promote their own brands that might hurt some competitor. And there's been testimony before Congress to that effect, that they don't use all the data that they have because they run this gigantic e-commerce site. They don't use that to decide what products to create, and they don't use it to affect the algorithms they use that display products when consumers search on the website. What we found was, based on thousands of internal Amazon documents that Reuters looked at, that what we found was that this was not the case at all in India. Whereas Amazon has described anyone, they don't deny that someone might have done this. There have been accusations over the years in Bradstone's book, for example, in the Wall Street Journal, that former people who worked on Amazon's private label products say, this went on, where they exploited proprietary data from sellers to benefit the private brands products. But this has always been described by Jeff Bezos and others at Amazon as kind of these are rogue employees. We have a policy that prohibits this. What we found in India was that they had a formal strategy of doing this, and that 2 high-level Amazon executives reviewed this strategy, that it involved rigging search results so that the Amazon products would come up in the first 2 or 3 when people searched for things, and that they copied other products from popular brands, particularly in India, but they considered copying shirts from Old Navy or Gap and others. So that was our major finding, that they had this formal policy there that they've denied ever having, and that they and it showed that they had rigged search results to benefit these products.
Yeah, and speaking of them saying in the past that they had not, done these things, it was in 2019, as you note in the piece, and then again in 2020 with Jeff Bezos talking about how they actually, quote, prohibit its employees from using the data on individual sellers to help its private label business. And I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but what you found is in India, that runs contrary to precisely what Jeff Bezos is claiming, correct?
Right. He said their policy prohibits this. He couldn't guarantee that it hadn't been violated, but he said that Amazon investigates such violations. And they said at that time they were in the process of doing that. But what we found was that there actually was a policy in India, which is a big growing market for them, where this went on. And at least 2 top-level executives who were at Amazon were aware of this policy.
Yes, I think that's the other big thing, that there were 2 executives who, according to these documents, were aware. Now, one of the things that I think folks will wonder is, what was Amazon's response? If you read the piece, then I'm familiar with what the response was, but I think it's important to let people know that, of course, Reuters reached out and said, "Hey, we've got all this information." And it seems the company was not interested in verifying because Reuters didn't provide its source, which is something that is standard for journalists, not to reveal the source.
Well,
so
we don't provide sources. We didn't provide the documents, but we quote from the documents in the story. They knew in advance largely what the story was going to say. We asked them many questions. They gave us a statement. Their statement essentially, as you point out, was, we can't verify these documents. Interestingly enough, their statement said nothing about the copying that we detail in our story, where they had this sort of step-by-step process of deciding which products to copy, how to do it, the extent they went to do it, which included finding the same factories that made what they called their reference brand products, and trying to get those factories to partner with them to make the Amazon knockoffs, basically. Mm-hmm. They had nothing to say about that at all.
Interesting. Yes. And I think that that's another important piece in this document, is that, or in this piece, is that not only was Amazon, according to the documentation, sort of looking at the different brands that were out there, the different products that were out there, and looking at what it could do to make them, but in many cases, the documentation shows they worked with the company, the manufacturer that made the same product that they were trying to replicate. And that alone kind of stands out as this direct violation of the policy, as it were. Now, one of the things that I found interesting in this piece was how Amazon has, in other places, gotten in trouble for this in the past. Could you talk about the Williams-Sonoma situation?
Yeah, so Williams-Sonoma sued Amazon in 2018, accusing them of ripping off some of their products that for a brand they have, for an Amazon private label brand. I think it's called Rivet. And so they accused them of copying things like lamps, a coffee table, and other products. And Amazon denied this in court in the filings, that Williams-Sonoma, as you know, is a San Francisco-based, retailer of home goods. That they said that Amazon had a systematic campaign of doing this. Amazon denied that, but then last year they reached an out-of-court settlement that's confidential.
Interesting. There were several other, this piece is so in depth. There were several other conversations with different folks who had claimed, there were some products that Amazon had created. Allbirds is an example, a Logitech mouse pad you talk about, several different things in here that kind of speaks to this pattern, be it in the United States or elsewhere. I know that India is sharing its information with regulators in the US and in the European Union. We don't have much time left, so I wanted to say thank you for joining us today. Thank you for writing this piece. Everyone should go check it out over on Reuters. We'll, of course, include a link in the show notes. Do you have a place you exist online where folks could follow you and keep up with your work?
At Stecklow on Twitter, my last name. I post the stories I do, and this is part of a series we're doing. So all I can say is stay tuned.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Steve Stecklow, for joining us today. We do appreciate it.
My pleasure, Mikah. Take care.
You as well. All righty, folks. Up next, we've got Jason Howell's story of the week. But first, this episode of Tech News Weekly is brought to you by IT Pro TV. Cybersecurity is one of, if not the most vital aspect of IT. The tech world needs these roles filled with qualified individuals, and IT Pro TV is the place to do just that. You can start your IT career today with IT Pro TV. Learn IT and get certified for the many IT jobs of the world. With 7 studios and more than 5,800 hours of IT training, nobody does it better. By the way, it's a spooky month at IT Pro TV for October. This month is jam-packed with events focused on cybersecurity. So you can check out the webinar on October 28th, which is Halloween themed, CyberSec Incident Response for Small Businesses. And it's called Avoiding the Nightmare on Main Street. You can find more info at itpro.tv/webinars or participate in their free weekend, 10/23 through 10/24. That's October 23rd through 24th. As a special for this month's theme, the following courses will be part of the IT Pro TV free membership: CompTIA Security Plus, CEH, CompTIA CISA Plus, and CISSP. Some of these words and acronyms are difficult, but I'm sure you will be familiar with those. CISSP. IT Pro TV's edutainers make learning IT interesting and fun. You'll get the most up-to-date information while preparing for exams, including brand new content from the studio to their course library within 24 hours. Courses are divided into 20 to 30-minute episodes with searchable transcripts. Edutainers are on staff and available every day if you need assistance. And by the way, they are the official video training partner for CompTIA. Learn anytime from the comfort of your own home and on your schedule. The IT world needs qualified cybersecurity professionals more than ever. Get your cybersecurity certs with IT Pro TV. Visit itpro.tv/TNW for an additional 30% off all consumer subscriptions for the lifetime of your active subscription when you use the code TNW30. That's itpro.tv/TNW and use code TNW30 for an additional 30% off for the lifetime of your active subscription. IT Pro TV, build or expand your IT career and enjoy the journey. Thanks so much to IT Pro TV for sponsoring this week's episode of Tech News Weekly.
All right. So I thought for my story of the week this time, I guess it would be a 3-parter because next week has turned into quite a week in the world of tech hardware. We've got 3 different events happening each day starting on Monday. So I thought we could just take a few minutes to kind of walk through what those events are, what we kind of expect, because I mean, when I think of like times throughout the year that things get particularly crazy for tech journalists, next week is kind of like near the top of that list, at least for this year, as far as that's concerned. So let's start with Apple. Next Monday, Apple had announced, I think they only announced this like a week ago, maybe, their Unleashed event, and which is not outside of the realm of the normal, right? Apple normally has this event that follows its big iPhone event, and it's usually kind of more focused on their MacBooks and their computers. Is that right, Mikah?
Yeah. So the earlier event, sometimes the September event will occasionally involve more than just the iPhone. Although we've seen in years past, Apple kind of split up the end of the year into several different announcements. Which ones get announced at what time is always different, but the Apple Watch and iPhone ended up being this earlier September event. Now we've got this October event. And depending, we could see one more event this year, or it could just lead us into the holiday season with perhaps a press release announcement of some products if Apple has anything else on the slate. But as far as this event goes, the big thing is going to be Apple's latest iteration on its computers, in particular its MacBook lineup, as it continues to roll out its silicon into its different devices. So whenever Apple first announced the M1 chip, which was the Apple Silicon chip for its Mac computers, it had that iteration, and we all knew that there was going to be kind of the next big thing after that. That this was sort of testing the waters a little bit, and as it moved away from Intel, then it would go on to something more powerful. It's widely believed that this chip will be called the M1x, and that we will see an M1x MacBook Pro. So the computers that are out there right now with the M1 include a smaller MacBook Pro and a Mac Mini. And so this is kind of taking things we hear to the next level, an all new redesign in 14-inch and 16-inch layouts. It's going to have some new charging ports, or not charging ports, but some new ports in general, not just charging, that we haven't seen in quite some time on older model MacBook Pros. I've got, a high quality, sort of top of the line MacBook Pro here with the Intel chip, and it's got 4 USB-C / Thunderbolt ports on either 2 on one side, 2 on the other, and then you dongle everything up. Well, some folks have said for a long time, we want the return of these ports that we've been used to on the device. And so HDMI and SD card option, maybe even MagSafe, the return of MagSafe to the MacBook Pro lineup. We might see that. And some improvements to the display technology on the MacBook Pro as well. Now, something is a little less likely. I have not heard a whole lot about this. I knew that there was a Mac Mini that was going to be another Mac Mini that was going to be coming out. I don't know if it's going to launch on Monday, but the theory is that it's called the Mac Mini Pro, potentially, that essentially you get a MacBook Pro, but in a Mac Mini form factor, which means it's a little desktop computer, a power-packed desktop computer that you connect your own display to, as opposed to it being, an actual computer all built into one thing as a laptop is. Other than that, we will definitely get the release date for Apple's next iteration of macOS. That's macOS Monterey. It has been in beta, of course, over the course of the summer and a little bit into the fall now. And as is always the case, when Apple sort of releases the hardware for its operating system after it announced it in the summer, then that operating system tends to ship with the new hardware. So, for example, the iPhone 13 had iOS 15 on it, and then iOS 15 rolled out to everybody to be able to install. I've been testing macOS Monterey over the summer, and it is quite a change. It will be quite a change for folks in terms of the visual look and feel of it. But outside of that, I think folks will be familiar with it. But it is nice to know that release date is coming soon. Although one of the coolest features that Apple showed off, which is the ability to move your cursor between, say, an iPad sitting next to your MacBook and the computer itself, that feature is likely going to be in beta when it launches, because that is just they haven't ironed out all of the issues with that yet, it seems. So they're still working on that. And we did see some of these features in beta in early versions of iOS 15 as well, where we didn't get them right away. So we've come to kind of expect that occasionally Apple will announce some things at its summer event where it reveals the next versions of its operating system. And when the hardware ships, it takes a little bit longer as they are making sure that it works as it's supposed to. The last thing is just a new version of Apple's standard AirPods, AirPods 3. As far as that goes, okay. In years past, Apple has just done a press release for these audio devices. So it will be interesting if Apple continues or chooses to show this off on stage and talk about them, because I don't know what's going to be different about these in terms of what will set them apart enough that they'll even have time. It might take 2 minutes to talk about them, essentially. So we'll see if that ends up getting announced on stage. What I'm waiting for is a new pair of AirPods Pro. Right. That would be a nice change. So yeah, those are the things that folks are most sort of the rumors have come together and agreed on these things, definitely. But it is, regardless of anything, this is definitely a Mac event. We definitely know it's going to be an event surrounding the Mac and Apple's next generation M1 chip, be it the M1X or some other name that they choose.
Got it. And you are going to be, is it going to be you and Leo doing the live coverage of that?
Yes, Leo and I will be covering this event. So you can tune in a little before 10 a.m. Pacific on Monday, October 18th to watch us as we watch and listen to us as we commentate on the event. Odd to have it on a Monday instead of a Tuesday, but at the same time, pleased that it's not going to be an absolute marathon getting through the day. But
yeah, that's right.
The next day is going to have its own host of announcements. Isn't that right?
Could you imagine if Apple and Google had their big events on the same day at the same time?
I'm getting stressed just thinking about it.
Yeah, I know. Thankfully, that didn't happen. Yeah, so Google has their big Pixel Fall launch. That's what they're calling it, Pixel Fall launch event. Interesting that they're calling out Pixel in the invite, because that seems to allude to this being a Pixel only event. It's possible that we might see some Nest hardware intermixed into there. There've definitely been a lot of rumors that have, the guarantee is that we're going to see the Pixel 6 and the Pixel 6 Pro. We're going to find more information about Google's Tensor chip that's inside of these phones. Google has released some information as far as how powerful that is and everything. But Tuesday, we will know everything that there is to know, save for probably some details that, that hands-on, journalists who have their hands on the device will be able to detail in the weeks that follow. But definitely the Pixel 6, definitely the Pixel 6 Pro. And, these phones are actually very notable for Google because they are their first devices running their own developed silicon inside the Google Tensor chips. And Google has really stated, we are going full out with these. The Pixel 5, which is what I've been running for quite a while now, it was really, and in retrospect, it really seems like it was a device that they just got out because they needed to get a device out. And, you can blame the pandemic, you can blame a number of different things, but it was a very lower than premium, let's say, even though it was their flagship for the year, definitely not a premium device to compete with other premium devices. And they say this time it's different. So I'm very curious to see, to hear some more of the details, even though we know so much about the 6 and 6 Pro already. Also expect Google to throw out some more details around Android 12. Yes, Android 12 released to the Android open source project a couple of weeks ago. So the code is out there, but they didn't do then what they normally do, which is do a day and date release to supported Pixel devices. And it really seems like, and I expect this to be the case, that they're waiting for the Pixel 6 announcement at least in order for that to start happening, because the Android 12 just as a whole is a very large UI shift, very visual change. There's some really great functional changes as well, but visually it looks very different from previous versions of Android, and especially very different on the Pixel 6, because Android 12 on any other device versus Android 12 on Google's own device running their own launcher, they're going even a step further on a lot of that stuff. So I think they're kind of holding on to some of those deeper details around Android 12 and waiting to release that for other Pixel phones until then. That would be my guess anyways. It's possible that we'll see some information around a Pixel foldable, or there's two different foldables that have been rumored pretty regularly now. We know that Google, at least to some capacity, has been working on these, and some very reputable leakers have stated, yes, expect to hear about this at the event. I'm holding out. I'm feeling super maybe about that. A little hesitant. Ron Richards on All About Android, my co-host there, he's feeling very positive and confident that we're going to hear about the Pixel Fold. So maybe it's the kind of thing where they talk a little bit about it. I mean, some of the rumors are even saying these things will be out before the end of the year. I find that hard to believe. We haven't seen any leaks, and Google is not good at holding onto these like visual like promotional leaks and everything. So I feel like if we were that close to that happening, we'd see something by now. Maybe some new Pixel Buds, although we did just get the Pixel Buds A that came out earlier this year. They're actually really fantastic. I love them. I don't know what the new Pixel Buds, what would be the appeal of these, because they guaranteed cost more than the Pixel Buds A. Maybe they'd add noise canceling. I don't know. I literally have heard nothing about new Pixel Buds, but I suppose this would be the time that we would hear about them. We have at this event in the past. Probably not, in my estimation, going to hear about the Pixel Watch, which is another very leaked device that we've heard about time and time again. I don't know. I suppose it's possible. This could be an all-out Pixel event where they just unload tons of hardware in all categories, but I'm just not feeling very confident about that. But we are doing live coverage of this as well on the TWiT network. Me and Leo will be doing this live. It's October 19th, next Tuesday, 10 a.m. Pacific. So in that morning, we'll be doing the Google hardware announcement coverage, and you can check that out, twit.tv/live. And then, like I mentioned, three different events, because then Samsung came along afterwards and like, us too. On Wednesday, Samsung's having a very recently announced Unpacked Part 2 event. I think this announced Tuesday evening. No one kind of expected that this event was happening. So it's still very much like, I've done a lot of reading and a lot of thinking around this. It's still very much a huge question mark as far as what they're actually going to announce. The promotional materials and their teasing states something along the lines of technology that should reflect a user's individuality. The promotional materials seem to show a lot about like objects, colors, apps, that sort of stuff. So, I mean, right off the top, where my mind goes is Android 12 hinges around this idea of Material U as being a highly customizable version of Android. Maybe this is, at least to a part of the announcement, is Samsung going into what Material U means for Samsung's devices going forward and what that looks like. It would be strange for them to have an event just about that, but I could see that being a part of it. I've seen some people guess, maybe some sort of hardware customization program. I feel like that's a total, that's a total guess, but who knows? There is the Samsung Galaxy S21 Fan Edition. They've been doing fan editions for the last couple of years that have been really popular. It's kind of like the premium phone, but just a step backwards. So some of the specs are ramped down, get it into a more accessible price point, but still offering much of the power of the premium flagship devices. And this was a phone that was expected and then rumored to be canceled. And then now the rumors say that it's actually going to come out, but it's going to be delayed until about January because of, the chip shortages and all that stuff. So it's kind of unlikely that they would show. I mean, maybe they would show it off, but that would be 3 months in advance if these rumors are to be believed. It's possible we'll see the fan edition, but unlikely, according to a lot of people. Too early for the next version of the Galaxy S series, the S22. That usually happens February and March. This year it happened in January because of the pandemic throwing things off. So I guess it's possible, but again, I doubt it. Galaxy Tab S8 is their premium tablet brand, and it's possible there too. I could actually see that, but I don't know how that ties into what they were talking about as far as reflecting a user's individuality and stuff. I don't know. Maybe that's part of it. Maybe it's the S8 with Android 12 and Material U, and here's how it's all for you. So pardon my children who are screaming loudly downstairs. I don't know if you could hear that or not. And then foldables, they just had a foldable event about a month ago. So I think it's highly unlikely that we're going to see any like new foldables that we've never heard of. Unless there's like customization around foldables. I guess that's possible, but Anyways, that's Samsung's Unpacked Part 2 event happening on Wednesday. And so if you are a fan of hardware announcements, next week is the week to be on the lookout for, because there's going to be a lot of hardware coming fast at you. And surely we're going to be talking about some of that stuff next week on Tech News Weekly. So
awesome.
Look forward to that. All right, coming up, Mikah, you've got your story of the week. We'll get to that in a second. But first, this episode of Tech News Weekly is brought to you by Crowdstrike. Of course, you've seen the headlines. We talk about it all the time on the network on TWiT. Ransomware is like in the news all the time. Ransomware attack after attack and holding businesses hostage. It's a real threat. It can feel like it's only a matter of time before a ransomware threat comes knocking on your door, and you're going to have to decide, do you pay, right? Or do you lose everything? And that just seems like an impossible decision. If you run a business, no one wants to be put in that position. But there is a third option, and that is to defeat your adversaries before the fight even starts. That takes intelligence, and that takes Crowdstrike. With Crowdstrike, you're not alone in the battle against ransomware. A secure future demands a shared defense. So not just you, collectively, as a team. That's why Crowdstrike's Falcon platform uses their Threat Graph power by advanced AI to analyze behavior on your devices, on your servers, your cloud workloads, and then find those threats and keep them from happening. Stop them in their tracks. Their security platform delivers the industry's most powerful set of tools that are fighting today's most sophisticated cyber attacks. It's all delivered through the cloud, through a lightweight, intelligent agent. Forrester study finds Falcon Complete delivers 403% ROI. Those are incredible numbers. 100% confidence, of course, along with that. Crowdstrike harnesses the power of every click, every action, every ally to grow stronger and stop cyber threats before they can stop you. Falcon Complete stops breaches every hour of every day. They have expert management, threat hunting, monitoring, remediation, and backed by Crowdstrike's breach prevention warranty. They don't just say it either. They guarantee it for Falcon Complete managed customers who receive a warranty covering up to $1 million in the event of a breach. Terms and conditions apply. We talked with CTO Michael Santonis, and he actually explained what makes Crowdstrike different and sets them apart from others.
I think what makes us unique is we've always tried to stay true to our mission to stop breaches, and today it's never been more relevant. When Crowdstrike was founded a decade ago, organizations and governments were being breached, and technology that they were using was not protecting them. So our goal was to build the fundamentals that organizations need to defend themselves and to stop breaches. And that is everything that we focus on. We focus on the customer, we focus on stopping breaches, and we make sure that we continually innovate to stay ahead of the threat for the benefit of our customers.
And innovate they have. Gartner Magic Quadrant named Crowdstrike a leader for endpoint protection platform for 2021. You need Crowdstrike in your corner. Join the fight and experience the power of Falcon platform for free today at crowdstrike.com/twit. That's crowdstrike.com/twit. Crowdstrike, because what we built together is worth defending together. And we thank Crowdstrike for their support of Tech News Weekly. All right, Mikah, what you got? What's your story of the week?
All right, my story of the week. Don't be fooled. This is not going to be coming out with the announcement of the AirPods 3. This is potential future tech. The Wall Street Journal has a report out about Apple studying the potential of AirPods for use as a health device. So right now, for anyone who has the AirPods Pro, if they've updated them to the latest firmware, there is an additional feature that lets you boost conversations. It's called Conversation Boost. And what happens is with Conversation Boost turned on, it uses the microphones that are inside of the AirPods Pro to sort of listen to a conversation that's happening in front of you and then tune that conversation and boost it for your ears so you can hear it better. So this is great if you're in like a a crowded place where there's lots of people talking all around, but you just want to hear the conversation that's happening directly in front of you. It's also great for folks who have, low hearing and need to be able to hear what's happening in front of them a little bit more. But that is sort of the first iteration of what the Wall Street Journal is talking about in these sources familiar with the matter who have said that Apple's working on this technology. Apparently, the company wants to, or is thinking about, releasing some additional features, including the ability for AirPods to take someone's internal body temperature. So you can think of it, right now, you go to the doctor and they may run a thermometer across your forehead, or they may put one of those little plastic caps on the thermometer and stick it in your ear and determine your temperature based on that. That is a very good way of measuring your temperature because it measures the temperature of the tympanic membrane, which is your eardrum. And the eardrum is a better measurement for what your internal temperature is versus your forehead, which is on the outside of your body and is affected by cooling and heating, etc. So you can imagine that this device that's already popped into your ear, you stick a little infrared camera in there, or a little infrared sensor in there, and suddenly it's able to take your temperature as you're using the AirPods. Now, on top of that, there's also rumors that the company would use the sensors that are built into your AirPods already, and maybe they would add some more, but already they could do this, to be able to detect your posture and help you if you start slouching, sort of give you a little buzz on your wrists or maybe even a little chime in your ears to say, oh, you've started slouching again. I could see this technology again being rolled out with what we have so far. If you have your AirPods Pro in your ears, you do a couple of little setup processes where it says, sit up straight and wear your AirPods, and then it says take your AirPods out of your ears, put them back in and set up straight again, so that it kind of can get an average feel of what is sitting up straight, because your AirPods might change positions a little bit in your ears, etc. And then using all of that information to better give you a sort of notification whenever you are slouching and help you with your posture. So all of these features kind of point to Apple working on adding to its health suite, because the Apple Watch is already a personal health device that has a lot of technology built into it. You've got the ability to take an ECG. You've got the ability to track your oxygen saturation. You can track your heart rate and get notifications for high or low heart rate. It can help to determine if you've got an irregular heart rhythm. It is your on-device way to be reminded to stand every once in a while, per the recommendation of different health bodies, all sorts of things that this watch can do. And so it's no surprise that given the success of the Apple Watch and Apple's interest in providing health products, personal health products to its users, or I should say offering them, to its users, it's no surprise that we see Apple doing this as well, or potentially doing this. One thing that's worth noting is that as it stands, the hearing aid regulations as part of the FDA are very outdated. These regulations date back to a time, and I'm quoting the Wall Street, or I'm paraphrasing the Wall Street Journal here. They date back to a time when regulations surrounding hearing aids were put in place because there were lots of different folks making hearing aids that were unsafe. And so they figured that out. They saw that happening. And so they put these regulations on hearing aids saying these things have to be tuned by an audio professional before you can ever offer them. And they have to be, precisely tuned to the user. Now with modern technologies and the proliferation of Bluetooth technologies, the regulations can change, and they are supposed to be changing. In fact, the FDA is working on changing them to be able to make it easier for over-the-counter hearing aids to be sold to consumers, where right now you have to have a prescription and all of the other stuff that ends up costing a lot of money. This would make it less expensive for consumers to do. And in fact, Bose is one company that has already had an FDA-cleared device for hearing aid, as a hearing aid or a hearing assistant. And so these opportunities could come soon, at which point, Apple may choose to market the AirPods as more of an over-the-counter hearing aid. But outside of that, I think these tools like I love the idea of having multiple devices that are all working together to take my measurements for my quantified self, meaning that they can constantly check against one another to better determine and sort of find the accurate measurement for what's going on. If it's measuring my internal temperature in my ears and my watch has a thermometer in it, which is a rumor of the next Apple Watch, then it can use both of those measurements to get a better idea of not only, what my internal temperature is according to my tympanic membrane and what my temperature is according to the heat of my wrist, but also, does that start to give insights about how blood flows through my body, how my capillaries are working or not working, how my nervous system is reacting to changes in temperature, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All of these things can kind of combine to give us even more information about ourselves. And I'm always about that. I think it's really fascinating to have that information and be able to use it in some way. So this is an exciting little piece from the Wall Street Journal and gives us a little bit more insight into where Apple is going next with its health focus and how it might not just be the Apple Watch that is serving as the device for tracking our health data.
Yeah, I think that's pretty awesome. Now I'm a tall person, as you are, Mikah. You're tall as well. I've battled with posture all my life. And, part of the reason being, A, a lack of awareness. B, because when I stand straight and tall, I am just tall enough in many situations to hit my head on many things. So I think over time, it's got me curving and everything. So I think that's really cool. That's a really cool feature. At least that's what stands out for me, right? Like I don't have hearing loss, although I think that's really neat as well. But having posture warnings in these earbuds that we're wearing, that's really great. I actually had tested a couple of years ago. I had tested the Upright Go, which is it's like an $80 gadget that you wear, like kind of like a necklace, but that rests in the middle of your back, and you calibrate it to say like this is normal posture, and it can detect within a certain number of degrees when you're slouching and not, and give you this like vibration, this like haptic vibration to kind of remind you to stand up taller and everything. Mm-hmm. And it's good for awareness. Something like this could be very good for awareness. The flip side to that, though, is that posture isn't just about being aware. Like we can be reminded 20 times throughout the day that we're slouching and correct. We will probably continue to slouch until we do the exercises that are required to bring that stability, bring the support around that awareness. So
to make that comfortable, because that's the big thing is as humans, we strive to be comfortable consciously as much as subconsciously. And so if it is in any way uncomfortable or painful to maintain that posture, then your body is naturally, when you're not paying attention, going to go to a place of comfort. We try to avoid pain as human beings. And so it's no surprise that you have to strengthen those muscles as well. And that's where Apple, again, this whole walled garden approach is that suddenly when they know that your postural issues are a thing, now they can recommend the Apple Fitness Plus videos that are specific to posture and say, hey, you might check these out next time you're in front of your Apple TV. These posture exercises that we have as part of our, Pilates course would be helpful to you. Apple's coaching, I think, has been pretty impressive. If I turn it off because it annoys me, but a lot of people keep it on where it's like, oh, you're 50 calories away from your goal for the day, or oh, don't forget to take a moment of mindfulness, or hey, it's time to sit down and have a breath, or what have you. Some people like that. Not for me. It just I see it and I ignore it. But yeah, I agree that. Certainly, I remember going to a chiropractor, a really good one, who not only performed the chiropractic techniques, but also was a personal trainer and would teach. Okay, these bones keep slipping out of place. And that's because these muscles are weak here and stronger here. And so here are some exercises you can do to strengthen these muscles in particular. And I want you to do that before I see you next. And then whenever I came back and said, yeah, I kind of did it for a little while. And then they're like, now come on, we talked about this. So that was very helpful. So having this all kind of built in and democratizing that, you know how I feel about that. I'm always about giving more people access to this stuff to help them lead a fuller life. I say huzzah and hurrah.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, cool stuff. I love that Apple continues to be committed to this. I think it's a great direction to go. Right on. All right. Before we move on, do you think there's any possibility that we see this at the event on Monday, or this is like down the line?
No. Yeah, I think this is down the line for sure.
Yeah. All right. Well, we've reached the end of this episode of Tech News Weekly. Thank you so much, as always, for watching and listening. As you do each and every week, we do this show every Thursday. You can go to twit.tv/TNW and find all the ways to subscribe to the podcast, audio, video, YouTube. It's all there.
Also, if you'd like to check out all of our shows completely ad-free, you can check out Club TWiT, because for $7 a month, you get every single TWiT show completely free of ads. It's all of the shows. You get your own personal little feed with ad-free content there. You also get access to the TWiT Plus bonus feed. It has content you won't find anywhere else. It's before show, after show content, some stuff we might slip in there that's fun to check out, and access to my favorite thing, the members-only Discord server, where you can hang out and chat with us live, but also before the show, after the show, with all of your fellow Club TWiT members. And now with our own Ant Pruitt as the community manager, we've got new stuff coming to Club TWiT all the time, which is very exciting. If all that sounds good to you, $7 a month, twit.tv/Club TWiT to check it out. Very cool. Also, hey, we heard that some people, they weren't really interested in the whole Club TWiT experience, but they did want to support their specific shows they liked directly. So we said, you know what? We're going to make that possible. If you are on Apple Podcasts, you can support a show directly. All of the TWiT shows are eligible there. You can head and find the audio version of the TWiT show and subscribe. You just tap a little button, and for $2.99 a month, you will get that audio feed ad-free directly in Apple Podcasts. Now, if you are wanting that kind of experience in other podcast applications, you'll either want to join Club TWiT, or you'll want to talk to that podcast app provider about adding subscriptions to their service as well. Thank you for those of you who have subscribed both via Apple Podcasts and via our Club TWiT. It's very cool to see all these people coming in, sticking around, and joining us for the show and afterward. By the way, if you'd like to tweet at me or follow me on social media, I'm at Mikah Sargent on many networks. So you can head to chihuahua.coffee, CHIHUA.coffee, where I've got links to the places I'm most active online. Check out Smart Tech Today later today, which I record with Matthew Casanelli. It's all things smart home, IoT, everything in between. Smart tech ends up being kind of a catch-all. There's a lot of smart tech out there. And on Tuesday, check out iOS Today with Rosemary Orchard. We'll be talking about the new Apple Watch as it launches officially tomorrow. I should be getting the new one. So we'll be talking about that on Tuesday for iOS Today. Jason Howell, tell me about you.
Well, let's see. At Jason Howell on Twitter. All about Android, twit.tv/AAA. Of course, doing the live coverage that I mentioned earlier of the Google event next Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific, twit.tv/live. I do want to mention before we go that we are within a best of season at the end of this year. All of us producers, that is Mikah and I and a few others on the network, have to create shows to fill the gap between Christmas and New Year's when the studio is dark, with some episodes of the best moments. And we could really use your help. Twit.tv/best of. If you go there, especially for this show, let us know about some of your favorite interviews from this year. That's your homework. Think of one interview that you absolutely loved, and then go to twit.tv/best of and let us know what that interview was. And that's going to really help us create the best of at the end of the year, and it'll save us a lot of headache because we'll know we're picking right for you. So twit.tv/best of. Big thanks to John Ashley, to Burke, to John Slanina, to everyone at the studio helping us do the show each and every week. So many to name behind the scenes. And thanks to you for watching and listening. We'll see you next time on Tech News Weekly. Bye, everybody.
Goodbye.
So you got yourself the brand new latest and greatest iPhone or Samsung smartphone because you heard about all of the beautiful photography those things can create. But for some reason, you're just not quite getting it done when you try to make your photos. Or you got yourself a brand new camera because you were interested in getting started in photography, but your little new inexpensive camera still isn't quite cutting it. Well, you need to check out my show, Hands-On Photography, here on TWiT. I'm going to show you how to be a better photographer and a better post-processor, and quite frankly, just help you get the most out of that new camera that's either on your phone or the brand new one that you just got for your birthday or gifts or what have you. And it's going to be a lot of fun. So head on over to twit.tv/hop. That's twit.tv/HOP and subscribe today.